In this video, I'm gonna give you a simple and easy way to make your foot actually smaller. My name is Dr. Story. I've been a doctor for 25 years. I'm gonna give you realistic advice based on my experience and based on the scientific literature. Now, many people don't like the size of their feet, and there's a number of reasons why. The first is they get teased. Young people will get teased because of the size of their feet. Whether the feet are too big or too small, everyone is probably gonna tease you about the size of your feet. The second thing is, many people want certain types of shoes, and when your favorite athlete has a certain shoe and that marketing company markets those shoes for a limited time offer or something like that, they will only make certain sizes from here to here. And what happens is, if it's a bell curve and you're on one side or the other side of the bell curve, you're simply not buying the shoes. And then what happens? Enemies at school will find out that you couldn't have those shoes, and then they're gonna beat you up. And that's a problem, right? So you don't wanna not have the cool shoes at school. The third reason why people wanna have smaller feet is because some cultures actually believe that the size of the foot has some value, some spiritual value, or they believe it looks good, it's attractive, that type of thing. I'm gonna show you some pictures here in just a minute of what I'm talking about. But if you want to shorten your foot, in the history of time, many centuries ago, what they would do was they would do what's called foot binding. They would take your actual foot, and these are your toes, and the back is your heel here, and they would roll all four of these bones called metatarsals underneath the first one, and then scrunch this one down. You could see that arch called a lotus foot, and they would bind it with cloth very tightly. And the whole purpose of that was to stop the growth of the feet. Now let me show you what this is, because I do not advise people trying this. Even though it's on the internet, even though some people will say this is how it's done, I just don't think this is a great idea. As a doctor that mainly treats joints and bones and muscles and tendons, I don't think this is a good idea. But let me show you some pictures. I'm gonna show you here on the internet. So these are some pictures here of someone with extremely small feet, and that is considered attractive. But when you take those cool shoes off, look at the feet that this person has. That is not a great thing. Look at this person's feet. Now that is called a lotus foot, and you could see how terribly destroyed that foot is. Here's another picture of someone with just that rolled foot. Here's another one. Again, that is considered of value to certain people, and they actually want this. Now, the big problem with binding the feet is that it's extremely painful, number one. Number two, it leads to deformities, which the person will suffer with for the rest of their lives. And number three, in order to bind the foot properly so that you actually stop the growth, you need to start this at an extremely young age. And I guess in the Tang dynasty in China, they used to bind children at the time they wanted the actual feet to be that size, about 3 or 4 inches, which means that about the age of 5, somewhere between the age of 5 and 8 is my understanding, they would actually start binding the feet. Very painful, and the whole purpose of it was considered high class. And because that was the highest socioeconomic status for that person, then all the people in the lower class, in order to try to move up in society, they would also bind their children's feet. Seems crazy from a Westerner's point of view, but that's what happened centuries ago, and that's just what they valued. So how can you, very simply, shorten your foot so that you could fit into certain shoes? Well, there's a couple things that you could do. Number one, let me show you specifically how to do this. Now, if this is a person's foot, normally people have an arch in their foot. And because of weight gain, which means you're too big, or lack of training of these muscles, or just genetics, you can have a flattened arch. Now notice what happens here between the actual heel. Let me see if I can focus this better. between the actual heel and the toes right here, they're a certain distance. Well, if you were to create more of an arch, which was the whole point of binding them, by the way, but if you create a more thorough arch, then you are going to shorten the distance between the toes and the heel, thus effectively shortening your actual foot by possibly a size. So how do you do this? You need arch support, and that is number one. And I'm going to put a link down right here that shows you exactly what's going on with the arches and how they make your foot shorter and what to do about it. Now, this is the important thing. What holds this up? You don't want to just put something under there and get weaker. There are muscles underneath your foot as well as other tissue, and what it does, it helps hold everything in good alignment. And you want to strengthen those tissues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link for you right down here on this side talking about core training. Just like there's core training for your lower back, there's core training of your feet. And if you do those, you will strengthen your feet, number one, you will maintain a good arch, number two, and number three, and this is the most important, you, my friend, are going to have a lot healthier and pain-free feet.